And welcome back. This is GBS Morning Extra. You can keep the conversation going on hashtag GBS Morning Extra. You can also send us a short SMS on 21144. Also, you can get to watch this very episode on YouTube. Now, as I had mentioned earlier, today we have with us in studio two very special guests who will be helping us to discuss about the International Youth Day. The International Youth Day is a day set aside by the United Nations to draw attention and discuss issues surrounding youth worldwide. This year's theme is Transforming Education, highlighting the efforts to make education more relevant, equitable, and inclusive for all youth, including efforts by youth themselves. In studio with me today, we have Mr., if I start with my near left, Mr. Isaac Bugeri. He's been with us here before.
Thank you very much, yes.
Also, we have Mr. Henry Kuria, Henry Maina Kuria, who is a mind education specialist, also has been with us here before.
Thank
you. Gentlemen, welcome to the studio.
Yes, thank you very much.
How is your morning?
Very well.
Very well, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Karibu sana. So, education, transforming education. But before we talk about that, the thought of having an international day recognizing youth, set aside to talk about youth and the challenges that the youth are facing globally. Your views on that? Maybe if we start with you, Mr. Isaac. Your general views on that.
Thank you very much. The largest investment we can do in humankind is investing in people. And there is no future if youth are not recognized. We are the one who are going to implement all the agendas UN have set, African Union. At the same time, we are the one who are going to survive and make sure the visions of our countries are going to happen.
When you say we, you refer to the youth?
Of course, representing them, yeah.
Mr. Henry, what's your take on that, on the same?
This is a positive direction that actually we are taking in consideration that, as my colleague has said, that the youth actually bear the biggest population in any country globally. And there is a dire need to put more focus on the youth in all aspects. Even in regards to the social vices and the social issues that we are facing currently, I think the youth are the most affected, and therefore it only calls that we focus more, since they also have the bigger energy, they have the biggest potential, socially, economically, and also politically, if I also put it that way.
Sure.
Yes, yes.
And when you talk about politically and also socially, we realize that many of the problems that we face today, many of the innovations that we have today, when it comes to issues to do with even politics today, we have the bigger percentage is youth. And Kenya, like many other African countries, is facing what the UN describes as the youth bulge. That is, you know, in its own definition, the UN defines this as a state when more than 20% of a country's population is consisted of the youth. Now, this, according to experts, may be a good thing or a bad thing. A good thing if the youth are well managed, if their issues are addressed, and a bad thing if none of this happens. What do you think, Mr. Isaac? You know, in terms of managing this and taking care of the needs that the youth have today, what is your opinion on that? How would you rate the African state as a whole, the African continent as a whole?
Thank you very much. We are the largest stakeholders in this continent. So we don't only need to be recognized, we need to participate in any step of decision making. Because I can imagine a country where only people are in 70s, they are the one leading whatever change we need to see. That will be a challenge. So coming now on the African aspect, we are today blaming the government not doing this, but are we also as leaders empowering those young people? We need to be doing this, right? So as this topic led by UN, transforming education, I believe, again, investing in young people is the best thing we can do, because at the end, we are the most creative majority. We are the people who have energy, and we are the people who are implementing all the decisions. At the same time, we are the victims. Now, what I'm advocating for, can we be part of the decision making? Can we be part of leadership positions so that whenever we are involved, we feel not only important, but we feel being part of achieving what Africa wants?
Can we be part of the decision making? Can we be involved in this? Henry, to me, that sounds more that we aren't really there yet. And according to the United Nations Development Program report in 2013, 10 out of 10 people, we find that 35 years, out of 10 unemployed people, 35 years and below are the ages of those people who are in that bracket of unemployment.
Yes, yes.
When you count 10 people, among them you find people between 35 years going downwards who are unemployed, which now brings to fore what Isaac is just bringing up. Can we be, meaning are we?
First and foremost, we must appreciate where we are coming from, because the results of what you're speaking about has been the silence and the non-activity that we've carried along for the last 1 decade or so. And where we currently stand, that is why right now we really need to act and act fast. As a youth, we are not yet there. And in terms of decision making, the youth have not been involved. I do thank some of the governments of who have come up with policies and initiatives to actually bring the youth on board. Now, there are two challenges. First challenge is on the side of the government. Second challenge is on the side of the youth themselves. And I tend to believe right now there's a wake-up call among the youth with the help of different programs, whereby we are seeing different youths and organizations coming up to actually get into this. Also on the side of the government, I truly pray and believe, and this is also my dream and hope, that one day we wake up whereby we shall see the youth actually taking part in terms of decision making, as Isaac said, top positions and also doing this. And we have a point to prove as the youth. Once we are appointed, elected, or nominated to these positions, then it is our task to prove that we are able to actually stand to the task.
Someone will want to argue that the youth are not ready. Recently, I think a few weeks ago, let me take a good example in Kenya. A few weeks ago, we had an uproar from the public directed towards, which was also supported by some elected members of parliament in our National Assembly, that the youth leaders that we had in parliament, that we have in parliament, have actually not been contributing. And if you see the kind of issues that they were involved in, and the kind of news headlines that they were making, it was way outside anything that can be called constructive or, helpful to the society. Is it that because our youth are not competent enough to hold leadership positions, that is why we are not actually being given the chance to be in those decision-making positions?
I would love to argue differently, because the youth are ready. It's only that, the picture and the expectations of the society and the old generation in this term is that, like long time we used to hear about this 5-year experience, these kind of things.
Yeah, when you're looking for a job, you need
and that is why I thank UN when they come up with such kind of initiatives. And we must be ready for the changing trends right now. We can no longer walk the same way that we used to when we were talking about experience and talking about the expectations from our youth leaders. That kind of people that we are expecting right now to come up and lead us. Also, we must draw a different picture. The society at large, the old regime, allow me to call it that way. And also even ourselves, we must redefine what leadership is in terms of when you're taking up these roles and positions.
Let me take an example of a political situation, Isaac.
Yeah.
Recently we had an almost, we were close to a spat between Kenya and Tanzania. And we saw even legislators standing in the house. There were clips going around on social media. Our leader of majority was pissed off and
Yes.
was, throwing very heavy words.
Yes.
The same came from the other side of Tanzania, where a legislator actually stood and said, hey, let's do this. We cannot have the whole house debate one MP in Kenya who was saying this. Give one of us permission to make a decision and let's beat all Kenyans and kick them out of... and of course, immediately after that, we saw the president made a very quick tour to Tanzania, tried to make a damage control, meet with the Tanzanian president. This came from the youth, and that's when this actually whole uproar came. Do you think that the youth are ready to take up leadership position as per se?
100% we are ready, and we are going to do it, and we are making it. Let me tell you, that's happened with Jaguar, I believe. The MP called Jaguar. We cannot generalize the majority of youth.
Let me cut you short. He had youth MPs who flanked him even on the day that he was being arrested.
Now, the issue goes again on the morals. It's not saying that youth were incompetent. And people liberated Africa. They were young people. They were youth, right? The same narrative may work for us, and it is going to work. So we are ready to take all the positions of leadership. And as I'm talking, we have a movement called the Hoja for young people who want to see the actions happening in Africa. And we just held a summit in Zimbabwe. And these are things we've been talking about. You'll find even summits, old people, they want to take over. They don't give you a chance where you can now come out and really discuss the matters.
Yes.
We are living the present, and youth are the one who are going to define the future. We cannot put them aside. We need to involve them, and we need them to be the biggest participant in every decision you are taking. And on the same note, remember the innovations and technology we're using.
Yes.
Who are making those applications?
Young people are.
They're young people.
Yeah.
Our minds are sharp. We are seeing the world in a different angle. The image we have for the future is really very innovative and very promising. So I cannot tell you there is this world in 2050 when you are ignoring our sense, our level of understanding. We cannot mingle with the old people who were born in 1930s. They are still thinking how the colonial masters dominated them, and I'm thinking of how can I compete with America.
But we have progressive old leaders in Africa and also the world. Is it all of them who think to us, still think about the colonial days?
There's one thing that we cannot rule out, the aspect of our mentors and those who have gone before us.
Sure.
They are examples, and we are within their footsteps to follow also the same. Now, one thing is we must be very keen, and he has touched on it. Right now, and especially in terms of elective posts and nominations and the decision makers right now, it has come as a very good example that we, the youth, can be able to make up to these positions.
Yes.
And right now, we just have a drop in the ocean, a very small number. But with time, now this has proved that we can actually make it and do it. That is why, with time, we really want more youth and to come up. And as we talk about the more youth, then there's a probability of, a few people who have bad morals, as he says, cropping up and coming up. But that will not deter us. It will not hinder us from actually moving forward.
Now, let's talk about the transformation, the theme of this year's International Youth Day, which is transforming education. Why should the education system be transformed?
Thank you. This is what I was waiting for all this time. Basically, education has failed us, and I'm very positive.
The education system or education?
Education system,
All right.
the current education system. Number one, how comes we have millions of professors currently who exactly are doing almost nothing to bring about solutions to solve community challenges, right?
Exactly.
We are good in memorizing books, and then you go out to do exams, and then you get this paper called certificate.
Yes.
But this certificate, it is just the money you paid for and the time you gave. But in the real sense, we are looking at education which can solve the challenges we are facing. We are living the present. What are we learning about things which no longer matter. Who came to discover Mount Kenya, right? Is this important for us?
That's information that is in
When-
the internet right now.
Yeah, now,
Should it be in the textbooks?
now these textbooks, in the real sense, there is a way, as young people, we are trying to say education. We need practical education. Education which is really understanding how can we go about solving the challenges we are facing. Stories and memorizing too much things are not going to help us. And that's why leaders who have seen far, countries like China, Singapore, can even see Rwanda, how they are doing amazing things. In Rwanda, there is now a university called African Leadership University.
All right.
By Fred Swanik, actually is an African, a young person, who came up with a very new narrative of changing the education system. For him, it's all about practicality. You don't just go to class to listen.
Yes.
You go to class for a few hours, the rest you are there in making your mental work on how you can solve even one key things. And then they work in groups. You are not there to do exams and die. You are there to use your talent. You are there to use your passion and demonstrate to the world that there is possibility, that I've understood what is happening. I'm ready to bring my input. That's why you can see young people have connected the world. Facebook, M-Pesa. It is an idea generated out of young mind. And then see how the world is very funny. 2% of the world are controlling 98% of the world wealth. Who are these people, right? How comes education and all the professors we have, they are not part of the 2% who are controlling the wealth of the world?
That's
And they're intelligent.
That's a very
So
interesting
education
view.
basically, we are going to talk about it in this session.
Yeah, because I think also we need to steer our focus very clear. There is the political aspect of it, but then there is also the need, like what you mentioned. I mean, we are not doing exams to die. The kind of systems that we've had before are systems where you put a child through about 12 years of education, but then you determine their fate. You determine their 12 years with an exam that will take place in only 1 week. So 1 week determines the fate of this child who have been struggling for 12 years in school. That is one area that many people have been concerned. Hindi Maina, why should we transform education?
One is that I'm not anyhow against the knowledge-based education. I'm a person who has actually benefited from this system of education. But currently where we stand, it can no longer apply in terms of what we are facing as a society. The challenges and also the emerging issues that we are seeing cannot be solved from the knowledge-based. I'll go deeper and say that right now the education system is more based towards the IQ.
Yes.
But right now, we don't only need IQ.
Yes.
As he says, doctors, professors, you'll find them on the streets. You'll find them committing suicide. You'll meet them, the same quagmires, much in
Having the
fact,
same problems that the rest of the society
with people who have not been educated in any way. Therefore, it calls that IQ can no longer be the only pillar that we are standing on. Right now, there's a very big demand that we have the EQ, the emotional quotient. There's a very big demand that people are also equipped with SQ, the spiritual quotient.
Spiritual quotient.
That is why we must transform the education to cater for these three main things. IQ, EQ, SQ.
How do you implement these EQ, SQ? Maybe you can just give us a sneak on that.
First and foremost is we must change the setup of the class. As he said, we have young people who have come up with different ways and the methodology of teaching. I thank the government also of Kenya and maybe other governments within of trying to change the system, whereby you would sit for 2 hours and the teacher is one after the other. So one, the methodology of teaching, the class setup, we must change. It's not only from basis where we read. Let us use audio-visual materials. Let us use, I love the Jewish system of discussion. They come and they discuss. And
they have a router system.
Yes. And therefore, this is the way to go. So first and foremost, as I said, the methodology of teaching and the learning environment must change.
We've seen teachers in Kenya. Let me take the example of Kenya because it's the environment that we're familiar with, and it's where we've been keeping track of how the government is actually putting efforts to change the education system. But we've seen, some deterrents. We've seen some hindrances from teachers in Kenya. It's blocking what today is known as the CBC, the competency-based curriculum. It's the new curriculum that the government is trying to introduce, but then according to the teachers, still it's not clear to them, and they don't seem to support it. Do you think that this is...
At some point, I stand on the side of the teachers because the way the government introduced this new curriculum was a way whereby, yes, they're introducing it, but how they did it also is not inclusive.
It was more ad hoc than it was...
Exactly. It was not inclusive. It was not from a point whereby each and every person understood. I stand as a parent. Up to date, I'm still trying to come up with, yes, with what my children are actually learning.
Sure.
So the catching up and the inclusivity that this is what we are bringing on board. Please check if the menu is correct for you.
Involve all stakeholders.
Exactly. So at some point I do start with the teachers, and I also take this very frankly that currently, as he said, there's a system whereby you try to crack it, it takes too long and it's too hard. Ideas, innovations, and this I take to the Ministry of Education. You come up with programs, yes, you speak about it in glass houses and make decisions, but have you involved the lower people in such a manner that they're the ones now to come and implement?
That's true.
Because yes, they make the decisions, they tell us to implement, but who is actually to do the technical aspect? It is the teacher.
It is the teachers.
It is the people on the ground. So I find it that, yes, it's a new system, but our approach towards it is actually what is bringing all this kind of uproar. But I do believe with more conversation, with us having more of this, like International Youth Day, and I thank the UN who are coming up with this, because right now where we stand, I would love to tell all organizations and any government, right now, if it is not time for working together, you are being phased out.
That's true.
As we speak today, we have a lot of young people, like we all agree that there are, the biggest population is consisted of young people. And there is a situation where we find the issue of unemployment. Unemployment basically is driven by various factors. Among these factors is that even the graduates that we get from universities, when they go out to the job market, they cannot satisfy in terms of meeting the competency. In terms of merit, they are not able to fill in the positions that are needed to be filled. The employer cannot get his value from the graduates. What do you make of this as a student leader and as a student still at in the university?
Thank you very much. I will start by saying the current setup was made, the current education system, so to satisfy elites, people of industries and companies, corporate people, and politicians, because you are just there to go and work for them as soon as you finish. So they don't give you a roof where you can develop a critical thinking, where you can be creative, where you can go out there and start your own. Education is there based on finish and then go and get employed. We are just there to serve people. Now, we are not prepared to be job creators. That's the challenge. And you have talent. They have ignored that young people, they have to be prepared in school to go and solve. We are just there because we have to go and work for somebody who is ready and is waiting for us. You cannot get talented people when you haven't prepared them. Even before you go to perform music, there is that phase of preparation. Where do you want me to get experience you are looking for? When you know you have dominated the education system so that I can come and remain under your domination. It is wrong, right? So according to my opinion, that's why we are advocating for practical education. And let me show you just two things. People are bringing the really change in this world. There are people who are talented and people who are passionate. You can see
and passion.
Talent and passion. Someone like, and this also involves creativity and innovation. Someone's like Thomas Edison. He wasn't that much educated. But today we are using light because he uses creativity. right? He was passionate about bringing
most of the
telephone, all of
products,
these things. They didn't go to school to learn how to make telephones. They used their inner passion, their innovation capabilities to create what we're using today. And to close this, allow me to say that we are in data technology age, where we no longer have to wait people to teach us how to create solutions. Already we understand that it is time to go out and see what is needed. How do you bring the mass together to be exclusive so that whatever decisions comes out, it is serving the community and at large. So the issue of going into classes, do exams, get a small paper, and then jobs, in 20 years, I believe to no longer work. Because we're in the total different generation, which our aim is to have a sense of creativity, innovation, and
I really want to discuss that more, and I really want us to go a little bit more deeper into that.
Yeah.
Also considering the fact that a bigger percentage of these unemployed are youth. And the other problem, the other big quagmire that we have today is that recently we saw the Cabinet's secretary give a directive that, you know, young people who have not serviced their help loans be arrested. And it really cost us a star in the whole country. We saw one, you know, Senator Sakaja was very instrumental in terms of coming out and condemning that and vowing that no youth will be arrested in his county for not paying help because we are not creating jobs for these people. We are giving them a system of education that cannot give them jobs, and we are again putting them into debt even before they finish their education. And maybe Henry, you can remark on that, and as we just very briefly, and then we can come back and discuss that more as before we take a short break.
I'll approach it from this perspective. We have the education system and we have the job market. Now, please let us understand that the education system is a very complex thing to change. So where we should be focusing on immediate change is on the side of the job market. It is more flexible, it is more easy, they understand the challenges far much better. That is why I would rather put my focus and energy towards the side of the job market.
So we align the job market more to consume whoever comes out of that
in this way,
system that we have?
We have the CEOs and we have the companies.
Yes.
They must not only go in terms of what the education system is bringing out.
All right.
We can take these people who have finished, they have graduated, you know, take them for internship and volunteering programs and something like this, and then mold them
into what we want.
It takes 1 week to mold a person to whatever you want them to mold.
Very interesting.
The education system will take 15, 16 years, 20
more
years.
More than
exactly.
I guess, yeah.
But yes.
I want you to hold that thought, Henry. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, I'll allow you to finish up on that point, and I really want us to discuss this further. Viewer, if you're just joining us, you're watching GBS Morning Extra. The hashtag is #GBS Morning Extra. You can watch this very episode on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter as well. You can also send us an SMS on 21144. The topic we're discussing today is about the International Youth Day, and this year's theme being transforming education. And this is indeed a very hot topic, especially in Kenya at this time when the government is also struggling to implement the CBC. We take a short break. We'll be right back after this.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back, viewer. If you are just joining us, you're watching GBS Morning Extra. With us today in studio is Henry Maina, who is a mind education specialist, and Isaac, who is the founder of the Hoja Youth Summit. The two gentlemen are here with us today mainly because we are talking about the International Youth Day, which Kenya, of course, is celebrating the week on the 12th of this month. And the focus of our discussion is the theme of this year's World International Youth Day, which is transforming education. The two gentlemen, of course, represent different organizations, and I would like to take this opportunity, Henry.
Yes.
When we went for the break, you are the one with the mic. Maybe if you can just a little bit more on what we were discussing, and probably tell us a little bit about what organization you are working for and what you do as an organization for the youth and for a change of education.
Yes. First and foremost, I'll pick it up from where we were speaking about, whereby we have the education system,
Yes.
and we already have
The job market.
The job market. Now, for me, I'll highly focus on the job market, because they understand what is it that we need on a daily basis.
Yes.
They have the reality of the challenges and the problems that we are facing. And the solutions are far much quicker and implementable by them. That is why if we change the mindset of the job market, if we change the mindset of the people who are already graduated and sorry to use this word, I hope we had a better word, the dropouts. If we change the mindset of these people, then these people will help us change the education system, because I'll tell you for sure, it's very hard to change the education system from the inside.
It takes a long time.
Yes, and also you have to break very big numerous walls. And that is why now, as an institution, I work for the International Youth Fellowship,
Yes.
which is a sister organization to the video clip of which has just run. And
The International Mind Education
Institute. Yes, and we highly focus on character molding through this mind education. The main reason being is that in life, it's not about, how well you are learned in terms of the knowledge you're speaking about, but it is a matter of how well do you understand and which kind of a mind do you have. The examples of Albert Einstein and the people who have gone before us, Wangari Maathai, I can mention many, Mark Zuckerberg and all these kind of people.
The likes of Edison.
Yes, yes. If you check very clearly, there's a very big debate right now. Is there a need for them to go to college and universities? Check, most of these people are in one way or another dropouts of the education system.
Steve Jobs.
Exactly. But they had a very high EQ and to some extent the SQ. And that is why they are able to do this. So for the mind education, we empower the youth with this EQ and SQ so that they complement it with the IQ, and they're able to stand with one pillar. So the mind education makes people have a strong and positive mindset. And this is very practical in terms of day-to-day life. Make people on the ground, they're facing challenges and problems within their life. The challenge and the problems is not the problem. The problem is how do you approach the challenges and these problems? Because in one way or another, challenges, problems, and all these kind of things are not ending today. Neither will they end tomorrow. But which mindset do you have when you're approaching these kind of things? And especially the education system has brought us in a way whereby we are more lenient in terms of when we see challenges, we try to avoid them. Because the knowledge-based education is not teaching us to overcome these challenges and problems. That is how now mind education comes in terms of equipping people, empowering them to actually face the challenges that are within the society.
And I'll get back to you to explain a little bit more about that. I also understand last week the IYF held the International Youth Fellowship Youth Culture Camp that took place in Kasarani. And the government also was represented there. The president, of course, was supposed to come. He did not, but he sent representation. And I believe that his speech was read during the event. I have a clip that I will run a little bit after that, and then we can speak more into what the government of Kenya is doing also to help implement the mind education in Kenya. But then, Isaac, you are away. You came back recently, I think on Sunday, as you were speaking earlier. And you're in Harare, Zimbabwe.
Yes.
You went to say hi to Uncle Bob?
Yeah, I love him, the Pan-African, the only one who liberated people on the land at the same time. Mr. Robert Mugabe. Yes, basically I went for Hoja Youth Summit. which
So what's the Hoja Youth Summit?
Okay, Hoja Summit, it is a movement for young people. It is a youth platform, an action youth platform for young people. We intend not only to blame, but to take action. And our mission is to see, can we challenge ourselves, share opportunities and solutions. At the same time, we meet young people who want to be policymakers,
Yes.
leaders, in political level, organizational level. Also we meet entrepreneurs. People want to create solutions.
All right.
Entrepreneurship is not all about making money. It's all about being innovative
Solving problems.
and solving problems. So as we come together as young people, number one, what we do is to challenge things like education system.
All right.
Like we have what we call projects, where we achieve what we call agenda of commitment. Everyone goes back to his village to implement what he feels is necessary,
All right.
instead of blaming. Like you take part of being part of the action,
Yeah,
instead
you
of
become
being
part of the solution.
that is it. So basically, we had a big team which basically was actually working on the education.
Yes.
And these young people, they said, what we need is to challenge ourselves, challenge policymakers to see how can we include a practical education, which does not only work for people who are looking for us to go and work for them, but education which is working towards solving the community challenges.
Helping us as learners come up with solutions to the problems
That
we're
is
facing in
it.
society.
Yes, and on the same, we are holding YALF, Young African Leaders Forum, here in Nairobi from 29 to 31st
29th of this
August.
month?
Yeah. Actually, it will be in USA, United States International University.
All right.
Now, we are coming only to talk on one thing. How does entrepreneurship empower? How does young people in East Africa trying to use entrepreneurship to create the global economy and compete with the rest of the world? It will be really very practical. We'll be having young people who are doing, who will be coming to demonstrate what they are doing, and inspire the ones who are not doing. So actually, it is an action platform, in short.
All right.
And at the same time, we are launching what we call Hoja Network in KICC, Kenya International Convention
Kenyatta
Center,
Convention Center,
Kenyatta
yes.
Convention Center in October, 18 October, where now we are going to have this movement launched officially as an African platform for not only discussing problems, but discussing solutions for our better continent and make a new Africa we want.
Thank you, Isaac. Now, as I mentioned earlier, during the last week, we had the International Youth Fellowship hold the 2019 IYF Youth Culture Camp at the Kasarani Indoor Arena from the 28th of July to the 1st of this month of August. And in an event that the President was supposed to attend, but of course he was represented by the CS for Youth and Social Affairs, Gender and Social Affairs. Here, let's listen in to this clip before we come back and discuss much more.
These organizations. The government recognizes the need to adequately engage all stakeholders, including faith-based organizations like International Youth Fellowship and like-minded partners in enabling scalable initiatives that are benefit to Kenyan youth. We are presently faced with a task of extracting the maximum potential of our youth and young people through their creativity, innovation, passion, talent, the energy youth bring into the ecosystem, and using it to propel our nation into more prosperity. In fact, the whole of Africa, one of the resources we have is a very youthful continent, and we are always asking God, God, in this continent you put us, you have put also resources, you have put young people. How can we benefit? And we are calling it demographic dividends. That how can we maximize by making maximum use of our biggest population structure, which is the youth. We have taken a strong focus on the youth, their democratic participation and rights. Many times I interact with the youth, a lot of them complain they are not engaged, they are not involved. They want to have a voice, they want to have a space, they want to be heard. How can, and I think this gives you an opportunity at the end of this fellowship, I'm sure you have very concrete recommendation that will give you a voice as youth as far as matters that touch on you at home, in the churches, in the institution, and I'm sure also in government. You want freedom of speech, the right to education, and the right to determine themselves the future that they aspire to. We have put in place support structures that place youth on the steering wheel as owners and initiators of change in our country. I can say that without fear of contradiction. There are a lot of effort. If you see, like freedom to worship, I think sometimes we might just take it for granted that you can go to any country and hold a conference like this. It doesn't happen everywhere. But God, in His own wisdom.
Well, Henry,
Yes.
remarks there by the CS. Of course, she was reading a speech that was supposed to be read by President Uhuru Kenyatta, who was actually scheduled to attend the event. Extracting the potential in young people. That's what really caught my ear. And she spoke about innovation, creativity, and the passion in these young people, but also enabling an environment that allows them also to be able to draw this out. The IYF, I believe, is working with numerous government institutions in implementing the mind education.
Yes.
How far have you reached in terms of this?
Currently, as we speak, IYF set base in Kenya back in the year 2008. And each and every year since 2009, we've been able to hold the IYF Youth Culture Camp. So upon the database, we are speaking about 5 million youths who have undergone the IYF orientation programs.
All right.
And the most influential thing and the most positive thing that we actually do is to empower this person with a strong and positive mindset. With the help of like Hoja, then they come in terms of entrepreneurship and all these kind of things, and then we work together. So from where I stand, I can actually tell you how far we've been able to go is that we've been able to penetrate to the National Youth Service, that is the NYS. We have a training for them coming up, and especially for the decision makers, top cream, so that right now NYS is undergoing a transformation.
Transformation, yeah, we saw.
And I thank, because within the aspect of transformation is now education. The social transformation is that they've identified mind education as a way of social transformation. And we are also working very closely with the Kenya Prison Service. And in Kenya Prison Service, we are working hand in hand, both for the inmates and the officers, and especially for reintegration and rehabilitation of the system of the Kenya Prison Service. And I would love to tell you, Kenya Prison Service is no longer the same, especially after they introduced the open door policy. That is why I continually say, if you're working alone right now, you'll be phased out. It is time to partner, it is time to work together, irrespective of big names, small names. This is the time of working together.
And it's something very important that you mentioned that I would also like to draw. And it came out very clearly through what the CS was actually speaking about. You spoke about EQ and SQ. And in her speech, it was very clear that, you know, apart from just in the classroom, we need to enable them to solve problems at home, you know, their relationship with God and so on and so forth. Maybe you can just touch on that a little bit.
The biggest aspect we have right now is that the EQ, the emotional quotient, is that the current society that we're living in, we are facing something of which we were not prepared. We talked about it a long time ago, but nobody saw this coming. Nobody was in a position to tell us that the internet will be this vast. Nobody was telling us that in terms of even America dealing with guns and the mass shootings will come with this.
Problem of shooting.
So right now we need the EQ, the emotional quotient, how to deal with people. I'm sorry to say this, but the current generation is the screen generation. The face-to-face aspect has been lost.
They're so big on social media, but they do not know how
Kings,
to socialize.
kings on social media, but when you come to the point, even the language application
Soft skills.
is something of which is
Problem.
a problem. That is why EQ comes in. The relationship between you and your parent, you and your boss, actually tells a lot. That is why even if you're talking about unemployment, the aspect of communication and
employable?
exactly is still a very big question that we need to answer. That is why mind education comes in as a human resource aspect of training. To train on the soft skills, to train on how you can handle aspects in your life, and it's very practical, very, very practical.
Because of time, I want to shift very quickly to you, Isaac.
Yeah.
As your closing remarks on the same, you had the speech, the president's speech, and what is your general take on that as we finish, and how can you relate that to what Hoja is also doing for the young people? Very briefly, because we're running out of
Thank you.
out of time.
So I hope she was right. We need to improve and help young people to discover their passions, capabilities, and their talent. Through that, it is very easier to create solutions to what we are facing. On the Hoja aspect, of course, we encourage social skills. There is no you can live in a society which is in a progressive dimension like the one we have when you don't have social skills.
Sure.
So to live is living with others. And allow me to say thank you to IOF. Last year, during our Hoja Summit in USIU, you're part of the partners. We received your dance team, and it was a really a very great things, looking at Africans dancing with Koreans. On the same issue, if you may allow me, the really PhD starts after campus, when you go out and face the real life. And I will not feel ashamed to say that we no longer need all these many years to spend in school. We only need to read, to write, and discover what you're passionate about, and go out there, start doing. And passion doesn't work alone. You need creativity, you need innovation, you need people. You need to understand how to work with others. At the same time, you need to have a clear vision. So education does not teach us anything about vision, anything about money, anything about creativity. I don't know what we learn. We learn about stories, which will no longer help us. So in short, and I'm concluding by saying that it is not really on my task to say that mind education could be included in all the university curriculum, even from primary school, because if you cannot work on my mindset, there is no you can work on my future. So we have to build from inside to outside. And on this regard, allow me to say thank you so much for hosting us once again. And we are going to try our best. My plan was to quit education more than 7 times.
Yeah, you told me that.
Because of my great vision I have to become the president in 2035. And the constitution need me to have that paper.
Isaac, I hope you don't forget me when you become the president. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming to the studio and for honoring this invitation. It was a really healthy discussion, and I hope we could have more time to discuss this. Transforming Education, the International Youth Day 2019. That is indeed an initiative that needs to be looked into, and I believe that as we celebrate this day, we don't just celebrate the day or commemorate the day, but we also think about the youth and think about the matters of the youth continuously and have this discussion continuing. Well, viewer, that actually brings us to the end of our program this morning. We hope that you would get in touch with us. 21144 is the number. You can also keep the conversation going on Twitter. That's #GBS Morning Extra. My name is Timothy Omondi. Do have yourself a lovely day. Kevin Nyariki is coming up with Sports Extra in a bit. Thank you.